Today, we're diving into the incredible, invisible connections that tie our entire planet together. We're talking about the web of life. So let's get right into it. So think about this for a second. What could possibly connect a tiny microbe to a massive whale? And even crazier, what connects them both to you? Well, the answer is this amazing concept called ecology. It's the hidden web that links everything, and I mean everything, on Earth. Let's start pulling on that first thread.
To really get the big picture, we have to start small, with the absolute basics. So, first things first, what in the world is an ecosystem?
At its very heart, ecology is really just the science of relationships. It's not just about the plants and animals themselves, but about how they interact with each other and with all the non-living stuff around them. You could say everything is in a constant conversation.
Okay, so every ecosystem is basically a mix of two key ingredients. On one side, you've got the biotic or living parts, the plants, the animals, the tiny microorganisms. But they are completely dependent on the other side, the abiotic or non-living things like sunlight, water, and soil. An ecosystem is simply the stage where these two halves of nature come together and interact.
So how does life actually work in this system? Well, it pretty much all comes down to who eats whom. It all starts with the producers, think plants, that make their own food from the sun. Then you've got the primary consumers, the herbivores, who come along and eat those plants. They, in turn, get eaten by secondary consumers. And right at the top, you have the tertiary consumers, the apex predators eating other carnivores. It's a really direct flow of energy.
But wait, what happens when things die? That's where the real unsung heroes of the ecosystem come in, the decomposers. We're talking about bacteria and fungi that act as the planet's cleanup crew. They break down all the dead stuff, from leaves to lions, and return those vital nutrients right back into the soil. That allows the producers to grow, and bam, the whole cycle starts all over again. So, that chain of life we just talked about, it's really a chain of energy. But here's the thing, that energy doesn't transfer perfectly, not even close. To really see how life is fueled, we've got to look at how much gets lost along the way.
10%. That's it. This single number is one of the most important rules in all of ecology. But what does it actually mean?
So here's the deal, and it's absolutely crucial. Every single time one organism eats another, only about 10% of that energy gets passed on and stored in the predator. The other 90%? It's just lost. Most of it is burned off as heat. Just think of it like a 90% energy tax at every single step up the food chain. And this is why that 10% rule creates what we call an energy pyramid. You can see it so clearly here. You start with this huge energy base at the bottom with all the producers, but each time you go up a level, you lose 90% of the energy from below. It's simple math, really, and it's exactly why there are way fewer lions than there are zebras, and way fewer zebras than there is grass. Now, in the real world, of course, it's not just one neat, straight line. It's messy, it's complicated, it's a food web. An eagle doesn't just eat one type of snake. It might also eat fish or rabbits. And this complexity, it's the key to survival. If one food source disappears, the whole system doesn't just collapse because there are other connections to rely on. A food web creates resilience.
All right, so now that we've got the rules of the game down, let's go on a quick tour of all the different playing fields, the major biomes where life actually unfolds.
First up, we've got forests. They cover almost a third of all land on Earth, and they are absolute powerhouses of biodiversity. You think of a place like the Amazon. It's not just home to millions of species, it also acts like the lungs of our planet, playing a huge role in regulating the climate. Next up, grasslands. These huge open plains, like the African savanna, are the perfect example of that energy pyramid in action. All that endless grass, the producers, support some of the biggest herds of grazing animals on the entire planet.
From those lush plains, let's jump to the extremes, deserts. What defines a desert is an almost total lack of water, and that forces life to get incredibly creative. Seriously, every single plant and animal here, from a cactus that hoards water to a camel that conserves it, is a masterclass in adaptation. They survive in conditions that would be impossible anywhere else.
And finally, let's plunge into the water. We're talking about aquatic ecosystems. This is everything from a tiny freshwater pond to the massive oceans that cover more than 2/3 of our world. The amount of life in there is just staggering, from microscopic plankton all the way up to the largest animal that has ever lived, the blue whale.
So we have all these beautiful, intricate, balanced systems. But in our modern world,
A powerful new force has entered the game and is really starting to tip the scales. And that force is us.
One of the biggest impacts is deforestation. When we clear a forest, we're not just getting rid of trees, we are literally erasing entire complex food webs and habitats that took thousands of years to develop.
And it's not just about what we take away. It's also about what we add. Pollution, from factories, from farms, from all our plastic. It contaminates the very abiotic foundations we talked about, the air, the water, and the soil that all life depends on.
And of course, the big one driving so much of this is climate change. By burning fossil fuels, we've pumped so much extra CO2 into the atmosphere that it's warming the planet, completely scrambling weather patterns, and disrupting ecosystems everywhere.
On top of all that, we're often just taking way too much, way too fast. Overfishing, for example, can cause entire fish populations to collapse, which sends massive shockwaves up and down the food web and creates an imbalance that can take centuries to fix.
Okay, that all sounds pretty bleak, I know. But the story is not over, not by a long shot, because understanding the problem is always the first step to fixing it. So let's look at what we can actually do to help restore that balance.
So, how do we fix this mess? Well, the good news is the pathways forward are actually pretty clear and people are already on them. This isn't just some wish list. These are real actions. We're seeing huge reforestation projects, bringing forests back. Farmers are switching to agriculture that works with nature. We're setting up protected areas in the ocean, basically national parks for the sea, and we're seeing fish populations rebound. And of course, the global push for renewable energy tackles climate change right at the source. Every one of these is a real tool we can use to mend the web of life.
Because here's the bottom line. We are not separate from this web. We are a part of it. The health of these ecosystems is our health. And that leaves us with one final, really important question. This balance affects every single one of us. So what role will you play?